The annual Vote Coasters poll has wrapped up with some shakeups near the top of the list. This poll is intended to get an accurate picture of the coaster community's opinions of the world's best roller coasters, putting to rest endless arguments about which ride is better than which. But it often only serves to stir more debate. Most see this poll as an improvement over the Golden Ticket Awards, but that does not mean that every placement is without controversy. Disagreement can be part of the fun when done respectfully. Just understand that opinions about roller coasters, like any piece of art, are subjective. They depend on every person's unique tastes and experiences. Sure, some rankings are better than others. If the Golden Ticket Awards are like the Oscars, Vote Coasters and the similar Captain Coaster poll are like Letterboxd and IMDb. You definitely don't agree with all their rankings, but at least they're trying to get at what the majority of people truly think. Even when we have rigorous methods designed to capture opinions accurately, like the pairwise comparison system, it is impossible to be truly objective about coasters, or say that one coaster is objectively better than another. That is, except for my ranking that I'm about to show you, which is the one true ranking that is totally accurate and completely without flaw. This ranking combines the Vote Coasters poll with the Captain Coaster poll, averaging their rankings to smooth out their occasional large differences. But sometimes they smooth out their differences for me. In last year's video, I highlighted the wide gap between the poll's rankings of Ejinika at Fuji-Q Highland. However, while it remained high on the Captain Coaster poll over the past year, it shot way up the Vote Coasters poll, jumping from 62 to 6. This is because the Vote Coasters poll slightly altered their methodology from previous years. As I mentioned last year, Vote Coasters has typically struggled to represent some of Asia's rides, with not enough people having ridden them to appear on their ranking. Dinoconda and Python and Bamboo Forest are two examples that dropped off the list between 2021 and 2022 because not enough people ranked them. However, they are back on the 2023 list. Why? Well, according to the website, they enhanced their methodology to consistently feature rides ridden by fewer people. They don't go into detail on this page about what these changes are, but a peek into the spreadsheet of the rankings reveals a little more. You'll see that Note 1 says that data from previous years was used to improve the ranking. Some of these coasters have fewer than 5 riders. That should make them ineligible, as a coaster must appear on 5 different lists to be counted in Vote Coasters. But seeing as they still appear, it seems like there is something going on behind the scenes to incorporate older data, and it is simply listed as a note in the spreadsheet rather than included in the ridership. From some discussion about the poll I've seen, I think most generally welcome the inclusion of more coasters, even if it means using data from previous years. Perhaps my last video encouraged them to make it a priority? Another thing I need to expand upon since last year. I mentioned that Captain Coaster allows for data from years ago, and that data may sometimes lead to a less accurate idea of how a coaster is currently running. Well, not only does Vote Coasters now also use some of the data from previous years, but it seems that Captain Coaster does, in fact, throw out data once in a while. I have been tracking the number of matchups, also known as duels, that the site displays for about a dozen coasters. I just wanted to see how they changed after each month, but it wound up revealing that the number of duels dropped almost across the board on 2 occasions over the past year. See how there is usually a steady rise in duels over each month, which makes sense as new users join the site and as more people experience and rank attractions. Newer rides have steeper rises in duels. However, in May and August 2023, many rides wound up dropping in duels. This implies that in some way, some users withdrew or deleted their rankings. For example, Jersey Devil dropped by 18 duels in August. 2 rides must appear in at least 3 lists together to count as a duel for Captain Coaster, or at least that was the case as of a year ago in an email response they gave to me. This means there used to be 18 coasters that appeared in at least 3 lists with Jersey Devil to be matched up against it, but some of these lists were deleted, leaving only 1 or 2 lists with both rides. One hypothesis is that Captain Coaster deleted accounts that had gone unused for several years. Or perhaps it wasn't Captain Coaster, but Google or Facebook that deleted these accounts and consequently erased their Captain Coaster lists. If you didn't notice, we just stumbled upon another important difference in how these polls work. Vote Coasters requires 2 rides to appear in at least 5 lists to contribute towards the rankings, whereas Captain Coaster requires just 3 lists. Based on this, Vote Coasters is a bit stricter so as to be slightly more resistant to outlier opinions. As in, it's less likely that one person hating or loving a ride will affect its ranking drastically, since 4 people will always be there to balance it, as opposed to just 2 people for Captain Coaster. However, Captain Coaster is a bit stricter when it comes to the number of duels required to become ranked. Vote Coasters features 2 rides in its ranking that had less than 100 matchups. Looking back to previous years, 100 matchups seems to be around the cutoff to be added to the Vote Coasters ranking. Captain Coaster, on the other hand, requires 275 matchups, a significantly higher number. These are just two ways in which the rankings of these two polls can differ outside of the actual voters. In fact, I'm positive that if the exact same group of people submitted their list to both polls, the two rankings would be noticeably different, just based on the differing ways in how they decide to include rides. All the more reason to try and average the two together to smooth out these differences, right? Now, one thing I wished for last year was for Captain Coaster to provide a ridership count in addition to their dual count. That way, I could properly take into account differences in the voting base and average the two sites by their riders. I was under the impression that Captain Coaster did not have this information, but I now realize that it does based on the response to a message I sent them. I previously thought that the top coasters list that every user has was the main contributor to the pairwise comparison system. After all, you contribute to vote coasters simply by submitting your list, so I assumed the list on Captain Coaster had the same effect. But the list is actually the secondary contributor for Captain Coaster and does nothing on its own. The first contributor is the rating score out of 5 stars. Captain Coaster kindly responded to my message by saying that ridership was the same as the number of reviews. At first I thought this was a misinterpretation of my question, but now I understand that it was me who was misinterpreting how their site works. If you don't leave a review score but merely include a coaster in your top coasters list, you will not contribute anything towards the ranking. The website says to rate all your coasters and then order them in your top. I thought one or the other would work, but a rating is absolutely necessary to contribute, while an ordering in your top coasters list is not necessary but helpful because the star rating is less precise. As in, the site first looks at the number of stars you've given to a ride and determines which one you think is better that way. But if you give two rides the same number of stars, then it will look to your top coasters list to see if it can break the tie. This two-pronged system of determining the winner of each matchup is just one more layer on top of this already complex process, and I think I've dug as deep as I can. But now I can use ridership to weight the data. One final point of interest before we get into the combined ranking. The matchup weighting process that I used last year gave a bit more weight in general to Captain Coaster, which has the larger user base and more rides in its ranking. I always believed Captain Coaster is a Eurocentric site based on things like the number of likes given to pictures on European attractions compared to North American ones, and of course the fact that the publisher is French coaster enthusiasts. But now that I know the ridership numbers, I can confirm it. Surprisingly, despite having significantly fewer voters in the poll overall, and also being majority European, Boat Coasters actually has more ridership than Captain Coaster for top American rides like Steel Vengeance and Iron Gwazi. For top European and Asian rides though, Captain Coaster has more ridership. That means for the combined list, American rides will more closely match their Boat Coasters ranking, and European and Asian rides will more closely match their Captain Coaster ranking. But most of the time, it won't be anything drastic. I calculated the average rankings of 112 coasters in total, and 93 of them are no more imbalanced than a 70-30 split in ridership. You can also see the problem I touched on last year with using duels to estimate riders. Check out Guardians of the Galaxy at Epcot. If we used last year's method, Captain Coaster would influence its ranking more than Vote Coasters would. But we can see that despite having more duels on Captain Coaster, Vote Coasters had higher ridership, and thus should have more weight. Captain Coaster often has more duels since there are more coasters in the ranking overall, but we can now see that they sometimes cover up the fact that they have fewer riders. I am happy to use riders this year, meaning Vote Coasters gets a little more influence for certain rides. Of course, both polls will still have influence on every placement. But the fact that Captain Coaster is Eurocentric doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the data. The pairwise comparison method should generally ensure that there is no bias towards rides at more visited parks. So even if European rides get voted on more, that should have no correlation to how high they place in the rankings like it would if we used the Golden Tickets points-based system. And now that I've neatly tied this back into my original video on the subject, let's get into the combined top 50. Number 50 is Medusa Steel Coaster at Six Flags Mexico, an RMC hybrid. Number 49 is Time Traveler at Silver Dollar City, a mock extreme spinner. Number 48 is Railblazer at California's Great America, an RMC Raptor. Number 47 is Phoenix at Knoebels, a PTC Woody. Number 46 is Mako at SeaWorld Orlando, a B&M Hyper. Number 45 is Superman the Ride at Six Flags New England, an Intamin Hyper. Number 44 is Dinoconda at China Dinosaurs Park, an SNS 4D coaster. Number 43 is Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood, a Morgan Hyper. Number 42 is Lek Coaster at Legendia, a Vekoma Bermuda Blitz. Number 41 is Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom, an RMC hybrid. Number 40 is Millennium Force at Cedar Point, an Intamin Giga. Number 39 is Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, an Intamin multi-launch. Number 38 is Flying Dinosaur at Universal Studios Japan, a B&M Flyer. Number 37 is X2 at Six Flags Magic Mountain, an Aero 4D coaster. Number 36 is FLY at Phantasialand, a Vekoma Flyer. Number 35 is Schwerteskarnen at Hansa Park, a Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster. Number 34 is Iron Rattler at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, an RMC Hybrid. Number 33 is Outlaw Run at Silver Dollar City, an RMC Woody. Number 32 is Wicked Cyclone at Six Flags New England, an RMC Hybrid. Number 31 is Shambhala at PortAventura, a B&M Hyper. Number 30 is Twisted Colossus at Six Flags Magic Mountain, an RMC Hybrid. Number 29 is Helix at Liseberg, a Mach multi-launch. Number 28 is Expedition G-Force at Holiday Park, an Intamin Mega Coaster. Number 27 is Skyrush at Hershey Park, an Intamin Hyper. Number 26 is Hyperion at Energylandia, an Intamin Hyper. Number 25 is Terran at Phantasialand, an Intamin multi-launch. Number 24 is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion, an RMC Hybrid. Number 23 is Conda at Wallaby Belgium, an Intamin Mega. Number 22 is The Voyage at Holiday World, a Gravity Group Woody. Number 21 is DC Rivals Hypercoaster at Warner Bros. Movie World, a Mach Hyper. Number 20 is Wildfire at Colmartin, an RMC Woody. Number 19 is Wildcats Revenge at Hershey Park, an RMC Hybrid. Number 18 is Tutatis at Parc Asterix, an Intamin multi-launch. Number 17 is T-Express at Everland, an Intamin prefab Woody. Number 16 is Batman Gotham City Escape at Park Warner Madrid, an Intamin multi-launch. Number 15 is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion, an Intamin Giga. Number 14 is Lightning Rod at Dollywood, an RMC wood/steel chainlift/launch coaster. Number 13 is Maverick at Cedar Point, an Intamin Blitz coaster. Number 12 is El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure, an Intamin prefab Woody. Number 11 is Airy Force 1 at Fun Spot Atlanta, an RMC. Number 10 is Untamed at Wallaby Holland, an RMC Hybrid. Number 9 is Taiga at Linen Maki, an Intamin multi-launch. Number 8 is Fury 325 at Carowinds, a B&M Giga. Number 7 is Hakuge at Nagashima Spa Land, an RMC Hybrid. Number 6 is Ride to Happiness at Plopsaland Japan, a Mach Extreme Spinner. Number 5 is Ejinika at Fuji-Q Highland, an SNS 4D coaster. Number 4 is Zadra at Energylandia, an RMC Hybrid. Number 3 is Iron Gwazi at Busch Gardens Tampa, an RMC Hybrid. Number 2 is Velocicoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure, an Intamin multi-launch. Number 1 is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, an RMC Hybrid. Keep in mind that when you see changes between this year and last year, new rides and changing opinions are just part of what causes movement in the rankings. Both me and Vote Coasters altered our methods this past year, which no doubt made some waves. As a bonus, let's see where the polls disagreed the most. A few lesser ridden rides in Asia are up there, but so is The Voyage, which resides in the top 10 of the Vote Coasters poll. Ranking coasters is an inexact science, and is frankly better for sparking discussion than it is for ending it. We just hope we get closer to what people really think with each rendition. Thanks for watching.